Welcome, welcome. It's good to see you guys. This is On Democracy Sunday. I am Fred Wellman, your host. It's a beautiful Sunday morning. Actually, it's not. It's been thunderstorming since 3 a.m., but that's okay. We're here together. It's Sunday wherever we are hanging out. I am so glad to see you guys again as we gather. Some of our regulars and friends. It's so good to see you all. We got a really interesting show this week. I'm excited about this one because we're gonna mix it up. We've got to keep you guys guessing what we're up to these days, and this is one of them. So we're gonna have great conversations with a congressman, with a DOJ attorney, and of course, an incredible musician, legendary musician who you will know. And I'm just so excited to have you guys here. So good to see so many usual friends. As always, if you love what you're doing, if you love hanging out with us, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. And now on Substack, we are broadcasting live on Substack. It's so good to see you guys here too. For those who are new, this is a new thing we can do. Thank you to Substack upgrading their system. So now we can broadcast live on Substack, and you can see this show yourself and witness the craziness that is On Democracy Sunday, and participate in the chat. I've got you up there too. So we got everybody up. It's so good to see you. And let's go, as always, let's start with the news, because you got to start with the really crappy stuff first, right? And that is the news these days. So we are, it's been an interesting week, needless to say. The Trump administration has dug deeper into the government. DOJ has dug deeper into the government, and they're dug deeper into their efforts to deport the mysterious numbers they go from. I'm in the middle of writing a piece right now for Substack talking about how we're really being governed by meme. A lot of the policies that are coming out from Trump really are based on Republican memes or cartoons and not actual things. And one of those, of course, is the 20, 30, whatever the last number they come up with is the 50 million illegal immigrants that reside in the United States, which isn't quite accurate. And because it's not accurate, they've come up with ridiculous ways to try and find people. They told us it would be just the criminals at first, but now we're finding out the truth is they're going to grab anyone and everyone they can to deport, even if it's someone already on a green card. This week is the news I'm going to talk about. This is kind of troubling. This one is where the IRS right now is nearing a deal with the Homeland Security to give the names up and addresses up of people who are illegal immigrants. The IRS is preparing to help Homeland Security officials locate immigrants they're trying to deport, according to 3 different officials that are familiar with this matter. And it's a very big shift using protected taxpayer information to help Trump's deportation push. Under a draft of an agreement between the IRS and ICE, the tax agency would verify whether immigration officials had the right home address for people who've been ordered to leave the United States, according to a copy of the document that the New York Times is the first to report. Many undocumented immigrants file tax returns. This is something we've been saying for years, that actually many of these folks who are here in the United States illegally are encouraged to file taxes to pay their way. And this has been what the deal was. They would get Social Security numbers, and they would not have Social Security numbers, but they would taxpayers, right? Well, it's closely guarded because federal law bars improper disclosure of tax information. And so IRS officials have been resisting this request from the HLS previously to turn over information about unauthorized immigrants, warning so that would violate federal law. But we know the Trump administration doesn't give a flying fig about federal law. And here's yet another example. So the Trump administration has replaced those top IRS lawyers, and the agreement now under discussion appears to be narrower than an earlier request. So when they asked, originally they wanted to ask like all the files that could get. Now it's down to basically just confirming addresses. Still a troubling situation, because from there, it's, as always with all of these things, it's one more step to anybody's information, right? It starts with illegal immigrants, but hey, as long as we're asking, where's this guy Wellman live? Right. So officials are still finalizing that agreement, in terms of which were reported by the Washington Post. Right now, Treasury, which is refusing to comment. ICE is refusing to comment because that's what they do. The Department of Homeland Security has repeatedly tried to enlist IRS agents in their broad crackdowns, ask them to audit companies that might be hiring unauthorized immigrants. And this is the concern a lot of us have had, right? I actually wrote a piece. I did a video about a year ago when they talked about this deportation plan. And I'll tell you the story that I tell often of serving in Iraq. And one of the things they did in Iraq under Saddam is, let's say you've got a village next to yours that's got really good land. You'd love to have their land. It was a simple phone call to call up the government, say, hey, they're harboring terrorists, they're harboring insurgents or whatever, illegals, anti-Saddam forces in the village. The army would roll in hot, raid the village, arrest all the military-age men, whatever it took, haul them off. And then guess what? Congratulations, you've now got an extra village to take over. It's a simple step here in the United States is saying, hey, I say you own a paint company. Hey, these guys, they're definitely hiring immigrants. IRS and HLS should raid them, find out. So what happens? ICE rolls in hot, arrests everybody that's brown, grabs their computers, shuts down the business. Congratulations, you just shut down your opponent. So that's the damage. That's how this slippery slope occurs. And we said it a year ago, this is where they're going. And here we are. And so we'll keep an eye on this story, but that is a very troubling story that's occurring that we got to worry about. Another one that came out this week that's a little bit, a lot of these stories are kind of inside baseball, and forgive me, you guys know me well enough by now. That's what I do. But this one is about the law firm Paul Weiss. Now, what happened is, if you guys are paying attention, Trump's been issuing executive orders basically barring certain attorney. I mean, they're worded differently each time, but essentially attacking private law firms that in the past have been opposed him. In this case, Paul Weiss, it's a prominent law firm, often represented Democratic clients and causes, is facing just a wave of criticism right now because they've agreed to provide $40 million in pro bono legal services to the Trump administration to avoid this retaliatory executive order targeting its lawyers and clients. Now, earlier this month, Trump issued an executive order action that would have stripped the firm of its security clearances, limited its access of lawyers to government buildings, and rescinded government contracts with its clients now. So he asserted that the firm engaged in harmful activity and blatant discrimination and other activities inconsistent with the interests of the United States. So basically an executive order attacking a private company, a private law firm in this case. He specifically cited the work of former Paul Weiss partner, Mark Pomerantz, who had actually helped lead the Manhattan criminal investigation into hush money payments by Trump. So he targeted their firms. But this is where it got weird this week. Thursday night, Trump said on his True Social that he agreed to withdraw an executive order after meeting the firm's chairman, Brad Karp. The firm agreed to review its hiring practices, renounce any diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. It also support, this is the really weird part, it would support initiatives such as fairness in the justice system and the president's task force to combat anti-Semitism. And then, of course, that $40 million offer of pro bono legal services, which is a metric ton of legal services. You know, former attorneys, lawyers, a bunch of legal scholars, people like me are really disappointed and angry, frankly. They've drawn a lot of abuse for giving in to Trump. You know, Brad Karp went to the White House and met with Trump and offered this ridiculous deal to avoid these penalties, okay? But, you know, it's just... You know, if you think about it, it's blackmail. I mean, there's no other way to put this. This was a blackmail operation by Trump retaliating against a private organization. The acquiescence to Trump is a slippery slope. I mean, he's undermined the entire rule of, at what point do we have a rule of law? And lucky, we have a guest later in the show to talk about this very topic, Liz Oyer, who was just fired as the Pardon Attorney of the United States out of the DOJ because she refused to give Mel Gibson his gun rights back. And that's a great story, and I'm looking forward to talking to her about that. But Friday night, Trump at the White House did officially agree. They rescinded this development, and this is where it gets crazy. This is what Trump said. This development should give Americans hope if the legal profession dedicates a fraction of its energy to bringing justice to local communities, unleashing hardworking businesses, strengthening the American family, and unifying our nation. All Americans will benefit. I mean, is it just me, or do you guys hear like some really fascist shit there? Okay. I mean, it could have been written by North Korea instead of the actual Trump administration, but that's what it is. It's just really, really, really troubling. And so the statement included that they were gratified. Brad Karp himself, the CEO, said, "We are gratified the president has agreed to withdraw the executive order concerning Paul Weiss. We're looking forward to an engaged and constructive relationship with the president and his administration." Surrender. But this isn't the only one. Earlier this month, the president issued a similar executive order against Perkins Coie, which represented Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. Last month, he suspended the security clearance for attorneys at Covington Burling, which provide legal counsel to help former special counsel Jack Smith. Just one after another. Now, Perkins Coie is not giving up. They're fighting back. They're pushing back. He issued another list of, this is just how crazy it is. He pulled the security clearances of about another 15 people this week who had already done 3 times. Like my attorney, Mark Zaid. Mark had his security clearance pulled now the 3rd time. Like Trump doesn't remember who he punished already. He keeps punishing him over and over again. During comments to the media on Friday, Trump rejected allegations that his actions against Paul Weiss and these other firms was coercion. He says, and again, Trump in his own words, the law firms all want to make deals. He said they had violently pursued him for years. The law firms you're talking about, they're not babies. They're very sophisticated people. This guy. Anyways, again, yet another of these acts that are pure slippery slope that will lead to very dangerous circumstances for a lot of Americans when the rule of law is pitched right out the window. During comments to the media, it goes on. Now, this last story I want to talk about before we get to our interviews is one close to my heart. And this is the story about how they've been purging DEI content through the Pentagon. You guys see me write about this and talk about it quite a bit, I'm sure. It is a very troubling development, needless to say. And what it is every day over the past few weeks, Pentagon has faced questions from a lot of us, local leaders, citizens, people like us who are veterans, about the removal of military history, military heroes, historic mentions from the DoD websites and social media pages after it purged online content that promoted women or minorities. If you recall, I wrote a story, and a lot of us did, about the highest ranking Black Medal of Honor recipient, Major General Charles Rogers. His entire history was removed from Arlington National Cemetery, but also the DoD. They have a thing called Medal of Honor Monday. And they had, in the URL for the story that had disappeared, it said DEI Medal of Honor, which set a lot of us through the fucking roof, needless to say. So in response, the department's been scrambling to store a handful of those posts. And what they're doing is they're basically putting back the ones that we've raised the biggest stink about. This week, it was Jackie Robinson has been put back up. But many have been removed and are tagged and are gone forever. AP dug into it and started finding the really detailed of how this whole process went down. They've missed a lot. Tuskegee Airmen, the first Black pilots, was deleted as of Saturday and had not been reported. This past week, Sean Purnell, who I won't show videos of him because he's just so full of shit. He puts out these propaganda videos. But in an appearance on Fox News, he talked about how history is not DEI. So they're not going to delete history, yet they have done just that. And what's fascinating about it is the process they went at to get to, and they put this information out. If you understand, and I ran the military social media channels for the Army way back in 2008 when we first started getting up. I actually did a road tour when I was in the Army as a public affairs officer at the Pentagon, going around to Army units, encouraging them to join social media like Facebook and other posts as a way to communicate with their audiences more directly. In those early days, it was really effective. And I had a blizzard at Fort Belvoir, for example, and the Facebook manager there was able to give people real-time instructions on what roads were open and closed. We really encouraged them to participate in it. And now they're going back and having to delete all of that. I mean, again, if you think about social media all the way back to 2008, any post had to do with certain things. And here's where it gets really ugly. One official told AP that they were waiting for guidance on whether a military first. So they had keywords: first, female, Black, race, bias, gay. All those words were used to search using AI and other tools to find all these things. So example was they're waiting on whether military first count as history. So is the first female Army Reserve graduate of Ranger School, Major Lisa Jaster, whom I know, or the first female fighter pilot, Air Force Major General Jenny Leavitt, both had their stories deleted. They were the first. That's historic, okay? But apparently, according to, so is that history or is that DEI? Apparently, they've decided that was DEI, and these these incredible women have had their histories deleted. Some officials understand that whether it's a historic first, if the first was based on what Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth found to be a disqualifying characteristic, such as gender or race, it had to go. That's the bottom line. Hegseth said if it's a historic first because they were Black, like the Tuskegee Airmen, or Major General Charles Rogers, then it had to go. So they restored General Rogers because, he was a high-ranking Medal of Honor recipient, but they won't restore the first female Rangers. That's what's really pernicious about this and gross about this. So the team took down several major historical heritage sites. Many posts about women, various ethnic and racial groups were deleted completely, gone forever. If they ever tried to put them back, it would take months to fix them. Overall, tens of thousands of online posts that randomly mentioned dozens of keywords, including gay, bias, and female, have been deleted. And a bulk of those images are gone for good. Even as complaints roll in, officials will be careful to restore things unless senior leaders approve. I mean, the guys who talk to AP to describe this behind-the-scenes process as challenging, frustrating, and emotionally draining. And when you're going through years of posts of historic documents, many of these people who work at DoD, they're civilians, they wrote these. They said they had tears or lash out in anger at commanders directing them to do these things. Not complying with the order was seen as dangerous. Could put senior military leaders be fired from their jobs. So it's been a blind approach. So if the websites were fairly easy, they used AI, which would, again, put that DEI tag. But purging posts from X and Facebook and other social media sites, they actually brought in troops. This is where it gets bad, because civilians generally, they don't work 24 hours in the military. So they actually had to put American service members on 24-hour duties for weeks now to go through every social media post for their command, dating back probably to 2007. To delete any post that mentioned those keywords by hand, one by one. It's just kind of sick. But here's the part that's been setting off a lot of us military members and a lot of us veterans and a lot of us service members is this disgusting thing that they keep saying. This is Sean Parnell keeps saying. I think the president and the secretary have been very clear in this, that anybody that says in the Department of Defense that diversity is our strength is frankly incorrect. Our shared purpose and unity is our strength. And I've talked to a lot of my fellow service members, white ones like me, who say that whole statement runs down our spines very cold because, look, I joined in 1983, okay? That was something we said then. Excuse me. We said that then. Diversity is our strength because the United States is a diverse country and we're an all-volunteer force. The military is an all-volunteer force. We have to get everybody in. We have to recognize the service of everyone. We need them. There's not enough healthy Americans. And look, folks, if you haven't heard the number before, less than 1/3 of young Americans age 18 to 26 actually even qualify to serve in the military at all. Between education, between drug use, between health problems, chronic illnesses, it keeps getting smaller, the pool of Americans that can even join the United States military. So by deleting women, by deleting Black, Hispanic, Asian history, we're deleting those people from service. They will not want to serve. And look, they may get away with it for a few months of having a spike in sign up from MAGA chud redneck boys. But I'm telling you, folks, you're going to see a dramatic drop in enlistments in about years. And I'll tell one last story before I get to our incredible guest. When I was serving in the Army, I ran the social for a bit. I was in charge of the organization that ran all the Army's media, the website, the social media channels, magazine, you name it. And when the Army launched their Army Strong recruiting campaign, if you remember that one, the Army of One and everybody's Army Strong, we saw within 6 months, there was a statistical drop of female recruitments. Female service members weren't coming in anymore. And when they did the research, when Recruiter Command did the research, they discovered that women didn't feel strong, Army strong. And so they were not joining up. They were not joining. And so we immediately rolled in hot with all the different angles we had, our social media, our stories about successful women who were Army strong. Hell, I even led a program where we highlighted a young woman who was actually in the Miss America contest and was still a service. She was a veteran of combat in Afghanistan and then won Miss New Mexico, okay? Because we needed women. We needed women to join. That was in 2008, y'all. That wasn't DEI. That was recognition that we weren't going to make our recruiting numbers if we didn't have women and young men and people of color. And here we are, 2025, with the Department of Defense leadership that's directly attacking the idea we should be actively reaching out to these young men and women to join the military because they're POC or women. We will pay a price. And it won't be just today. It'll be 20 years from now when they all get out early and we don't have any people we need if the country gets in a war in 20 years. So you don't make a general overnight. So anyway, all this is very troubling. I hope you understand my frustration with this and where we are. I'm excited to go in. Now we got a little bit different format today. We're going to have guests. We got 3 guests this time. We're going to chat with some great folks. I'm so excited for our first guest. You know, this guy is one of those guys, like, you may not know him. You may not be a household name, but you'll hum a few bars. Is that good? You're going to hum a few bars. So without any further ado, I want to welcome Glen Burtnik to the show. Glenn, come on in. Or not. JJ, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. There we go.
Look at this.
Perfect. There you are, sir. All right. Glenn, welcome on to Moxie Sunday, man. So glad to see you so early in the morning. I love your flag.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Great. A fellow New Jersey boy. I was born in New Brunswick. I am a Brunswick boy myself. Yes. Wow. 1965. Oh, I just gave my date away. Oh, we're in trouble now. Obviously younger than you are, sir. So where are you now? Are you in? I don't think I know where you hang out. You hang your hat normally.
Yeah, I was born in Irvington, but I spent most of my life in a New Brunswick area, and now I've been living here in the Asbury Park area for, I don't know, almost 20 years now. Yeah.
Wow, I don't feel so bad. You didn't have to get up the crack of dawn. I was worried. Or LA, I hit up my friend Morgan Fairchild the other day, and Morgan's I love saying she's a friend, and Morgan's like, Fred, I'm not getting up at 8 a.m. to put my makeup on. She's like, I said, I get it. I get it. It makes sense to me. Glenn, you've been doing this business for a while. I mean, you are a multi-talented, multi-tour, multi-bands. I mean, you play with incredible artists over the years. I mean, can you hit some of the highlights? I mean, like as you sit here looking back at a career that is ongoing, you're a working musician still and have a bunch of dates lined up still. I mean, you've had some incredible highlights in your career.
Yeah. I've been very fortunate, actually. I've written hit songs for a number of artists. I've worked with, oh my gosh, Patti Smythe, John McEnroe, Phoebe Snow, the B-52s, Patti Smith as well.
Yeah.
Deborah Harry. Like there's so many people, and I've written songs in major motion pictures, and like I'm currently in like 8 bands. I think that's what I do.
It's hard to keep track. No, I was looking. I mean, look what you got coming up. Let's see, Beatlefest. The orchestra, which is you got Max Weinberg with that. You've got Summer of Love tour coming up. The Weekling. I mean, you're a busy guy. And what I love when I was going through your bio and getting ready for the show, and our booker was telling me about you. So you grew up in the Beatles, right? I mean, that's kind of where your music started, didn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when my family in Franklin Township, when the Beatles came on Ed Sullivan's show, we all, I'll never forget that moment in the living room with the Burtnik family staring at Ed Sullivan. And, I was 8, and I carefully noticed all of my family members' reactions to this new, this group with a hairstyle that nobody'd seen before. And so, soon thereafter, I wanted to be Ringo right away. And I
Okay.
started, so my mother enrolled me in drum lessons. So that started it all. But then came Bob Dylan a few years later, and when Like a Rolling Stone hit, then I kind of got into him, and then I went backwards into his earlier folk stuff. So, I wanted to be a folk musician for a while, and whatever. I mean, as a kid growing up, it actually was a very rich culture growing up in the 60s and beyond. But there was a lot going on, and there was the war in Vietnam, and there was the Black Power movement, and a lot was going on, and the music reflected that.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily what's happening now as much, but in any case, I keep waiting an opportunity to say something, but music. But
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to me. Well, it's fascinating to me how rock has been so consistent. Like, and I think the fact that you're a working musician. I'll tell you honestly, I was speaking with my fiance today, and we caught a clip. Believe it or not, there's a commercial right now with, I think, Thunder Road is the background music. Okay, Bruce Springsteen, another Asbury Park guy, and I look at Born to Run albums, like one of my favorite albums of all time. I still play Born to Run. I'm in the grocery store. I hear Thunder Road. And if you think about it, that's 1975. That's 50 years ago. When you and I were kids, that would have been the 1920s, right? It would have been, Glenn Miller, right? Like playing, but that's the timelessness of what artists like you guys have produced and been part of. It's interesting, isn't it, that there is still an appetite where you're still producing quality rock that does have roots over 50 years now, doesn't it?
It's pretty amazing. It reminds me a little bit of classical music in that, if you want to go see a symphony orchestra for the concert, for the most part, you're going to hear Bach and Beethoven and these cats that have been dead for, centuries. And rock music, I mean, there's a young audience that still knows the music of the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and beyond.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is confusing. When I was a kid, I had, my father's music appealed to me, and I listened to the music that they played around the house.
Right.
And so as a musician, I went back and I kept going back and studying the history of music, but that was rare. My friends didn't do that. But now to see young audiences, classic rock seems to not be going away, for better and worse. It's true. It's like I worry about the kids. You guys got to make your own music sooner or later.
I mean, Oscar nominee movie was about Bob Dylan, right? I mean, it is still, there's still played by one of the most, popular young actors, right? Timothée Chalamet, right? And so that does say something about the appeal to the older, and maybe it is because that music did speak to things. I mean, you're right. A lot of our music today, and I enjoy a lot of the music today. I'm into EDM, for God's sake, but which is weird. I'm the oldest fan of a band called Odessa. People think I'm crazy, but if you look at that band, it does have throwbacks. Like when they do their live shows, they have the drum line, they have a horn section. There's the through line to more of a classic style of rock. I mean, when you do listen to Bruce Springsteen, when you listen to Thunder Road, that's that wall of sound style. That I would argue when I go to an Odessa concert, I've got a full drum line and horns and explosions going on. It's a more modern version of that, but it's still that through line is just a wall of sound.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce was throwing back then. He wasn't sounding like the modern music of the era in the 70s, which was kind of disco at that point.
Yeah.
He was trying. He kind of made a Phil Spector record, which is a 60s type record that he made in 1976. So he was looking back already. He was kind of a retro artist, and he owes a lot to Bob Dylan as well. But and Bruce has made his statements. He's made some political statements, but it's a very different world of music right now. I mean, Bruce, part of the reason why you might have heard Born to Run as a commercial is because Bruce sold his publishing for hundreds of millions of dollars recently.
Yeah.
So I think that means that there is some corporation, in Universal Music or somebody, Disney or somebody, that owns Bruce Springsteen's music. I'm not quite sure of all the legal ramifications in a commercial, but it's the world, it keeps changing, and at the same time, it keeps staying the same,
Right. And again, that goes to you still being a working musician, right? You still found a career. You get multiple, you play with Styx. I'm a giant Styx fan. It was the music of my high school, right? I mean, that's what, Styx is a huge fan. Obviously, Patti Smythe. I mean, you've written #1 songs and all. And again, you still tour. But I love the fact that going back to what we talked about earlier, your love of the Beatles, people don't know you played Paul McCartney on Broadway, didn't you?
Yeah, there was a show called Beatlemania in the 70s. And I'm a left-handed musician, so I play bass and guitar lefty. And back then, I was a young man, and
as we all were, or unborn, as many of us.
Well, I could get on stage and fool people into thinking that I looked like Paul McCartney back then. But in any case, that was a great gig, and it actually turned me on to a lot of it kind of upped my game a little bit, Right.
And it gives you a lot of access. I mean, you've written the #1 song, but now, what's it like? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I know you've talked about what it's like to age in this industry. What is that experience for you now? I mean, where you are, I'd like to where you are now. I think we could talk about the old days all day, but what's it like as a working musician today? We are seeing a lot of folks still on the road. I saw Genesis 2 years ago, right? I mean, so, and you're still touring. Is it a unique experience? I mean, what's the reception? How do you feel as an older touring musician? I mean, I think it's a fascinating aspect of it all.
Well, again, I feel very fortunate that I'm going to be 70 in a couple of days, in a couple of weeks, I think.
Happy birthday.
I can't remember. But yeah, to be this age and gainfully employed and as busy as I am, it's kind of amazing to me. First of all, nobody plans on being 70. I certainly didn't. And, and here I am, and I'm still, like I said, I'm still employed. It's fortunate. It's good. I've done it so much now. I've traveled so much. I've been all over the world. I walk out on stage. I don't get nervous anymore or anything like that. It's been decades of this. And, So it's a blast. I mean, the fact that I just feel again fortunate every morning I wake up and it's like, hey, I'm still here, and so many of my friends aren't, and my family members, are, all of that. Uh, I'm very fortunate to make music, and music really is. I consider it magic. I've always thought that like if an alien from another, you know, solar system came landed on Earth and went to a concert and could see people crying or the emotional or happiness, joyfulness at the sound of organized noise. Like,
Right.
why is that so important to humans? And I don't think that you can really you just can't explain it. But it is this powerful thing that we've created and that we continue to create, and it's just magical. It's magical.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's such a great way to put it too. It is, and it matters. It matters. I mean, I know during the pandemic, I think I tell stories all the time that, again, that like group I enjoy, Odessa and others, music kind of kept us grounded, I think, in a lot of ways. As artists kind of still produced as much as they could in that time. I mean, it has been a place for all of us to kind of go back, a safe place. It does bind us. Pop music has changed quite a bit, but you really said something earlier to go back to, but the classic rock holds on. Many of us are aging, as some of our commenters are a good point. We're all working to our 70s now, so there's no retirement for that. But in a group, an organization, in a business like yours. And you said something very key. A lot of your peers have come and gone. I look at Phil Collins. Poor Phil. Phil can't drum anymore. He's got nerve damage in his, I think his neck or his shoulder. His son Nick is very talented. He's drumming for him. I mean, so to have your health and to keep on going is very challenging. Now you tour with your wife, don't you?
At times, there's one of my shows called The Summer of Love, which is like a review of this music that I loved as a child, as a young boy. The late 60s, early 70s, kind of the Woodstock generation era.
Yeah.
And Christina is in that show with me, and she's awesome and she's beautiful, and she makes me look good.
Well, they all do. My fiance, this whole show was my fiance's idea. So she said, "Hey, you should do a Sunday show." I'm like, "All right, well, I'm going to be busy every Sunday morning." Here we are, and it matters, And so you are still on the road. You've got stuff coming up. Where are you going to be at soon? Do you know? I mean, like, Beatle Fest is coming up. I mean, right there in Jersey, right?
Yeah, I'm playing with Max Weinberg a lot, and we're doing like Maryland, and then I'm doing the Fest for Beatles fans, which is the last weekend of this month. And then I'm playing the Beacon Theater with Max Weinberg and Wolf Trap with him. And then the orchestra, this band I'm in, which includes former members of Electric Light Orchestra. We play that music. We're playing Epcot in early April. And then my Summer of Love show is in Red Bank in early April. And I'm traveling around with all of those acts. And then on a big one is May 30th. I have, so I was in the band Styx, and I wrote and sang a number of singles and stuff. And, but I left the band about 20 years ago, and I haven't really performed any of that music in decades. But I have a show coming up in Red Bank, New Jersey on May 30th. Burtnik plays the music of Styx. So I'm going to revisit that music soon.
And that'll be amazing. I mean, that, because it is a remarkable archive of music, right? I mean, the songbook. I mean, the songbook you touch on, number one song by Patti Smythe, right? I mean, your songbook is pretty extensive now. I mean, like you said, I mean, do you have an idea of how many songs you've written?
I would think hundreds, and some of them have been successful, and some of them nobody will ever hear. But I'm just very fortunate. I was always somewhat creative when I was a kid, and as soon as I knew two chords on a guitar, I started writing songs. So that's helpful too. So I do this. I'm spinning plates. I play theaters. I just was on a cruise ship recently. and playing music, playing classic rock, playing my own music from time to time, and writing music and recording albums. There's a group I'm in, the Weaklings, and we release records of original music as well as playing Beatles stuff. So yeah, I'm just spinning plates, man, and enjoying where I'm at in life.
Oh, it's exciting. And I love that. I just saw Steve Hackett here in St. Louis. I think you guys are about the same age. His original member of Genesis, back to Genesis again. And that's what he did. He played, obviously he wrote a lot of some of their albums. And so that's what he did. He bent back and played the entire album, in addition to his original music. And it was really, it was sold out. So it's like there's an audience, my friend.
For sure. No. And you've got Mick Jagger on stage in his 80s.
How old is Mick now? 80s, right?
Early 80s. And McCartney, but Mick.
Yeah, on SNL the other night, right?
Yeah. So, and Bob Dylan for that matter,
Yeah.
Some of my heroes of my youth some of them are refusing to leave. They're kicking and screaming their way out. They're not over yet. It ain't over,
Yeah, well, that's exactly. I'm not going out with a fight, right? That's it. That's the way to approach. That's how I'm approaching things myself. And I'm in politics now, so it's a little bit more crazy than it is, which is why I want to talk to you instead of talking about politics for an hour. But it's great. Well, so what's your number? You've had a couple of number ones, Patti Smythe, right? For those who might not remember,
Don Henley. Yeah, there was a duet that Patti Smythe and Don Henley did. And there was a number one country record Randy Travis did called Spirit of a Boy, Wisdom of a Man, which was a big deal for me because, I was kind of I continue to be a rock musician. So
I was going to say, you're from New Jersey.
Yeah, right. But the idea of writing a number one country hit, that's a very rich culture and a very important part of American music comes from the South. And
yeah,
so being accepted as a songwriter in that tradition of, Hank Williams and everything, Jimmy Rogers and all these incredible, beautiful music from the South of our country. And country music seems to be that, or at least it was. And so that was a big one for me. It was like, wow, I'm accepted outside my circle, which is a lovely thing.
Yeah, I love it. And continue to be accepted as you tour. So, look, I'm not going to keep, I know it's late in the morning there on the East Coast. And again, next concert, so people know where, I think we put up on screen already a couple of links to a few of your upcoming Summer of Love tour and everything else. But I believe we see you in New Jersey next, don't we?
Well, actually, on the 27th, I'm in Owings Mills, Maryland, with Max.
Oh, yeah.
Max is the drummer for Bruce Springsteen, by the way. But but then the next night, Friday, the 28th through Sunday, the 30th of March, I'm at the Fest for Beatles fans, which is a celebration of Beatle music with a bunch of different people who were involved with the Beatles, worked with the Beatles. It's for Beatle nerds. It's kind of like a Star Trek convention for Beatle fans.
Okay. What is that like? They have to know you, from Beatlemania, right? I mean, if you see the comment, especially on Substack, we've had a lot of folks saying, oh my God, I saw Beatlemania, and they didn't know it was you, which is kind of funny, but, that's gotta be some pretty powerful and dedicated fans, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it appears to be a cult that I belong to. Who knew? It's a cult that doesn't cause any harm. My wife is a big Grateful Dead fan. And so she takes me to all these shows of Dead and Company with John Mayer and Bob Weir and some of the original cats. And that's a cult too. But that's a beautiful cult. You'll never see
Fish.
A fight.
Fish fans are the same way,
It's a lovely, so there are these, it is very different in that people adhere to certain artists. Like either you're a freak about Taylor what's her name? Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Swift,
Yeah.
or the Dead, or the
Yeah.
Beatles, or Pearl Jam, or whatever. I mean, it is. Whereas when I was growing up, WABC AM in New York, it was just the top 10 that mattered, and
Right.
we were all aware of the top 10 back then. Whereas now, I can't say I know all of the top 10 artists anymore.
Yeah, it does. It's a well, and that's last. Oh, I'd love to talk. Music. The industry's changed though, hasn't it? I mean, I think in a certain sense, you said something very key. I grew up in the '70s. I grew up with an AM radio that I snuck into my bedroom and listened to music. I grew up with. I have no musical talent, by the way, Glenn. Just want you to know, I don't pretend. I don't know what it is. Everybody else in my family played. We had a baby grand in the house. My parents refused to make me learn it. I ended up being the athlete of the family, which is why my body's broken now all these years later. Casey Kasem, that's right. I see one of our comments mentions Casey Kasem. Yeah, that's what I grew up on as well. But it's kind of like, I talk a lot about, I'm in the media business now, and how in a lot of ways the media business has diversified and split up. Now we got this show. This is a show, podcast. Like, we'll do several thousand. I'll get as many hits on here as I will if I went on, a TV station, local TV. But the same way the music industry, right, with Apple Music and Spotify, good and bad, right? But it is a much more diverse. Do you think in a certain sense it's made your music more accessible in a lot of ways, hasn't it? Because now I can find almost anything. I'm not a slave to what is someone else's chosen. Do you think it's diversified? Do you think it's good or bad? I mean, obviously there's definitely negatives as far as payments and stuff, but it is a much more diverse media scene, isn't it?
I think it's good and bad. There's with anytime there's a change in things, there's usually two sides to what it brings. And certainly selling records just isn't, what it once was.
Right.
But it is more democratic. I mean, if I want to hear something, it's so easy for me to just dial it up.
Right.
I think the internet has been a blessing and a curse. My wife is a teacher, and she deals with, she teaches high school, and
wow.
And to see, she comes home telling me stories about how the new generations are, they're changing. We're being wired. We are addicted to social media somewhat, or at least are addicted to cell phones. Yeah, I would think most of us are.
I am.
Yeah, but us older people come from a time where you did interact one-on-one socially with people, whereas when Christina, my wife, tells the class, okay, we're done with today's lesson. You have 5 minutes to do whatever you like. Instead of everybody talking to each other in this class, everybody grabs their phones and they're all silently dealing with their phones. So that's going to change the way life is, as much as all of the other changes we're facing right now. Crazy.
Yeah. It's interesting too, and I'll let you go because I could talk to you for an hour. I'm sorry, but it is funny. It's made this generation, especially Gen Z, and now I guess the Gen Alpha. They're also wired different than we are. I mean, in the sense of they have a larger idea of what community is, right? It's like they do. Like my youngest son had friends in Germany via Xbox, right? It's like it is very interesting how it's flattened our world quite a bit. At the same time as distance from the closest ones. But I could go on all day. I'm going to let you go as I promised 5 minutes ago. Glenn, we'll put in the blurb after the show where you're at. And I just appreciate you just taking time for us and reminiscing a bit and telling us. And I just thank you so much, sir. And keep rocking, man. Keep up the rock and roll.
I enjoy your podcast, and I'm grateful to be asked to be a guest. Thanks.
We'll get you back. I'll hunt you down and join you. We got an Evolution Music Festival here in St. Louis. They haven't released the lineup yet, so I'll be looking for you. It's in the fall. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
All right, man.
Rock and roll. I just, the thing about, we were talking, the team here, Katie and JJ and I were talking before the show about how we need to do more of this. You guys, I know you guys used to talk in politics. We talk a lot of politics here. Obviously, the name's On Democracy. But I think we also have to remember there's the rest of the world's going on too. And we have to take a break from this. We're all going to lose our minds. I mean, we are going to lose our sanity if all we do is think about the craziness and then not take a moment to think about music. So we're going to be having a lot more musicians and comedians and actors and people from culture, because we have to have these conversations. And fuck, I love these conversations. I mean, come on. I got to talk to one of the members of Styx. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Now we got to get serious, though. And the next two guests are much more serious about the events going on. And you may have heard the news in the last 2 weeks that the pardon attorney for the United States, which she'll tell you what that's all about, I'm sure I'm going to ask her, was let go immediately after she made the decision, or fought the decision, to give actor Mel Gibson his gun rights back after he'd been convicted years ago of a domestic violence case. And this whole story is unbelievable. I am so blessed to have the opportunity to talk to her. So Liz Oyer was appointed to serve as the pardon attorney in the United States Department of Justice in April of 2022. Prior to her appointment, Ms. Oyer spent 10 years as a federal public defender, and she's the first public defender to ever be appointed as U.S. pardon attorney. So let's welcome Liz Oyer to the show. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Fred. Thanks so much for having me.
You've had quite a couple of weeks. A lot going on in your life these days, and we were talking the pre-show. You've been just as busy as you were before, aren't you?
Yeah, it's been a shockingly busy 2 weeks, given that I no longer have a job for the first time in my entire adult life.
Congratulations. Welcome to unemployment. It's great. Start a podcast. That's what I did. I don't. It's a living. It's justifying. You've had a wild few weeks. And so as we said in the introduction, you're the U.S. pardon attorney. Maybe a lot of people, I know you've explained it many times, but can you explain to our viewers, what does the U.S. pardon attorney do?
Yeah, so the pardon attorney is responsible for making recommendations to the president for grants of clemency. Mostly these are grants of commutation of sentence, which means a reduction of a sentence of imprisonment for people who are incarcerated. Our job is really to ensure that regular people who don't have political connections or access to the White House through the front door can also have their cases considered by the president for clemency.
I mean, how much do you process there? How do cases get to you?
We receive applications from people all around the country, most of whom are incarcerated. About 2/3 of them are from incarcerated people who are serving a prison sentence. And some of them are from people who are in the community who have completed their sentence and are seeking a presidential pardon. We receive hundreds, if not 1,000 or more applications per month. We receive them from all over the country. And almost all of these folks applying through our office for clemency do not have attorneys representing them. They don't have access or political connections. They're really just relying on the office of the pardon attorney to make sure that they have a fair shot at being considered alongside all of those who have direct access to the White House and are seeking clemency.
That's a lot. And you were a public defender. In your bio, I was reading you're the first public defender to serve in that position. So you felt, I imagine you went into that position in 2022 feeling the weight of the importance of it and approaching it, understanding both sides of this justice system, right?
100%. Absolutely. I think one of the reasons I was selected for that position is I really have a pretty deep perspective from my time as a public defender on where some of the excesses of the criminal justice system lie and how harshly it can treat people. And so I went into the job thinking clemency is this amazing, awesome presidential power that really has the ability to correct an injustice with literally the stroke of a pen. As a public defender, you don't have a lot of tools in your toolkit that are that powerful. We resort to groveling, begging, pleading often to try to get outcomes that feel fair. So the idea of being able to make recommendations to the president for clemency, just to correct injustices so easily, was one that was really appealing to me when I went into the job, and also one that felt very weighty.
Yeah, and I can imagine it was a weird transition when Trump won the election, and you knew from his first term how he treated pardons as sort of candy for friends. I mean, did you have apprehension going into the new term of what you would expect in your job?
I was really pretty determined to try to work with the new administration to ensure that the president would consider some regular folks in addition to those who might get pardons as political favors. In his first term, he actually did some really good clemencies. There were some people who were really deserving who got out, but there were so many more who were left behind who weren't considered. The scale of what I would call the good clemencies that Trump did in his first term was very small and really could have been scaled up. And I was really hoping to have the opportunity to work with the administration to do some of those good clemencies, because it's not a political issue. There are people all around the country who are serving unduly lengthy sentences. There are people who are serving life sentences for nonviolent crimes. And it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's really an issue that has support on both sides of the political spectrum. And I went into it optimistic that there might be an opportunity to work with the administration. I was soon proven wrong.
Yeah, you got a special assignment, I think, in February to evaluate folks for happy getting their gun rights back or pardons, and then things went horribly awry, didn't they?
Yeah. So this new task was assigned to my office that was essentially reviewing applications for restoration of firearm rights. And it was unclear to me at the time that I left whether this was intended to be the sole business of the office going forward or whether this was going to be part of our work. But what was very clear was that a large part of our portfolio was going to transition to reviewing applications for restoration of gun rights.
Yeah. And these are federal offenses, obviously, for folks that are in that system, correct?
So interestingly, the federal law prohibits anybody who has a felony conviction from possessing a firearm, even if the conviction is under state law. So we ran some early numbers, and it appears that there are at least 25 million people who are disqualified from having a firearm because of a felony conviction who could potentially be eligible to apply for this relief of reinstating their gun rights.
So you got an initial list and went from there, and then things took a strange twist, didn't they? As they often do. Hollywood intervened, didn't it? It took a Hollywood twist, I guess, right? Literally.
We were very focused. We were asked to make some recommendations to the Attorney General about whose gun rights she could restore, and we were very focused on people who had nonviolent crimes and people whose crimes were in the very distant past and people who had demonstrated exemplary conduct since their criminal conviction. And there are quite a few of those people. We have people applying for presidential pardons sometimes because they want to be able to purchase a firearm legally. And many of those are folks who either there's a family tradition of hunting that they can't participate in because of their conviction, or they're people who have children who are law enforcement officers and they have to lock up their firearms outside of their parents' home because of that criminal conviction. So there are people who want their gun rights back for reasons like that. And there are some folks that we were able to recommend as folks who likely would not present a public safety risk if they were able to possess a firearm. But that list did not include Mel Gibson.
It must be nice. So Mel Gibson's a big...
Yeah. So I later, after we made recommendations about 95 individuals who we believed their firearm rights could be safely restored, some folks in the Office of the Deputy Attorney General reviewed that list and whittled it down to 9 people. And then they requested that I add Mel Gibson to the list of folks that I was recommending. That is something that I was unable to do, certainly not based on the information that was in front of me. Essentially, all that was in front of me was the information that he had a previous conviction for a domestic violence crime and a letter from his attorney making the claim that because he is a famous actor who's made a lot of high-profile movies and because he has a relationship with the president, that he would be a good candidate for restoration of his firearm rights. And, based on that record, that was not a recommendation that I was able to make.
And you lost sleep over that decision before it went. And so you lost some sleep. You said you couldn't do it. And what happened?
Yeah, I mean, this was something that I appreciated while I was in the role as a highly consequential request that was being made of me, because what was happening all throughout the department is people are feeling fearful of saying no to any request that's being made because they're seeing all around them that people who are not perceived as team players or loyal or with the program are being either fired or reassigned or just removed from discussions on all issues of consequence. So I understood that the way I responded to this request was going to be closely scrutinized and was going to be potentially determinative of whether I could continue in my role in the department. And there really wasn't any way that I could make that recommendation. And I knew that when I declined to do so, there were potential consequences. And the consequences were actually even worse than I feared. I initially thought, maybe they'll just take me out of the conversation and find somebody else who will do it. But the end result, within hours of making that decision, I was fired.
Yeah, and they've stepped up the battle since. I saw a statement from the Deputy Attorney General saying that you were wrong to be speaking of it, and it's and it kind of goes part and parcel with the style of this administration and Bondi and Blanche. And they're just it's a very different DOJ than before, isn't it? This is a really very, very different DOJ. From your perspective, especially as a member, you're seeing it pretty blatantly, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, what was so shocking to me about Todd Blanche's response was he said I was lying about what happened, and he accused me of acting in a way that was unethical. And it's bizarre because he has all of the documents in his possession that outline everything that happened exactly as I've described it. He it just illustrates that there's not a high regard for truth in the department right now. There's not a lot of integrity among the leadership of the department. And obviously, as someone who worked there as a career professional, that's a very tough environment to work in. And it was surprising to me that he made those statements afterwards because they're so readily proved untrue, what he's saying. I have made a FOIA request for the documents that would show that, in fact, it was him that was lying about me, but he has not yet produced the documents that I have requested.
And then, of course, the world has gotten crazier since you left. This week, we saw Donald Trump forcefully post on Truth Social that Joe Biden's pardons were null and void because of they were an auto pen, which, of course, is another example of governing by meme. That's not a thing, is it? I mean, it doesn't matter how it was signed, or he's making up law once again, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I have never heard anyone suggest that the manner on which the signature is applied has any effect on the validity of the pardon. I have noticed that, Trump appears to prefer a very heavy magic marker. Other presidents may have different preferences. But, the manner in which it's signed has never been considered to have any legal significance whatsoever. What is abundantly clear is that the president cannot void a pardon that is issued by his predecessor simply because he chooses to do so. I mean, we can have a legitimate conversation about whether the decision to issue preemptive pardons is a good one or whether it's sound policy, whether it's something that should be allowed. But, it is something that the president is permitted to do. And once it's done, it cannot be undone.
Yeah. And do you think they'll pursue that, or is that just one of those things that they kind of let him tweet about and leave it alone?
I cannot even pretend to have a guess as to what is in his
I'm trying to get you to speculate. I know you're a lawyer.
I do.
Host, you're speculating.
I will say I don't know what his intent is on many things, but I will say that there is certainly a pattern of him throwing out these little bombshells as a distraction, and I think we're being inundated by so many of them that it is almost numbing people to what is really happening in the background, which is he is attacking the rule of law system that we rely on from every direction. And, I hear people talk about the assault on the rule of law, and I've talked about it. And I'm not sure that people who aren't lawyers and haven't gone to law school necessarily understand what is the rule of law. But it is, what makes our society a fair and free place to live. It is what says you can't lock somebody in prison without giving them a hearing or telling them why. It's what says you can't torture people in prison. It's what says you cannot persecute your enemies for sport. Those are sort of basic foundational aspects of the rule of law system, and those are under assault from every direction right now. The Department of Justice, the safeguards inside the Department of Justice, the safeguards outside the Department of Justice, like the defense function, like the right to counsel, are all aggressively under attack by this administration, and it is very, very scary.
Yeah, I thought, and I brought it up in the end. Probably the last one we talked about is it's a little out of your realm, but what this thing with the executive orders attacking these law firms, using a presidential order to attack them, and then you saw yesterday or this week, Paul Weiss sort of said they kind of gave in. That for me. And I'm not a lawyer, but I've been subject of this lawfare. John, I mentioned previously I was sued by Mike Flynn, although I won. That for me was very chilling. It goes what you just said, that even the defense side of the rule of law is being attacked. When you could take a major law firm that's essentially made up of many of your political opponents and essentially punish them and force them almost into it's a blackmail, and they capitulated, which was shocking to me too. I mean, that's got to be another that we should be more scared of that than we are, shouldn't we?
We absolutely should. I mean, this has a name. Forgive my descent into diplomacy speak, because I am an international relations major, and this has a name, and it's called appeasement. It's what happened during World War II that allowed Germany to take over Czechoslovakia. It's a strategy that is failed. Appeasing a bully, appeasing someone who is fundamentally an enemy of democracy is not a strategy that is going to work in the long run. It's only going to remove all of the barriers that are preventing the steamrolling of our democracy. So it's really concerning to see that people are sort of proactively trying to find ways to negotiate out of these situations like the one that Paul Weiss was in, because it's just very dangerous. And it's been so interesting to see that there has been some leadership among the big law firms coming at the associate level, associates in these law firms who essentially have the least power of any employees economically are the ones who are speaking out and urging the big law firms to use their power to push back against the administration. And, they're calling on the leaders of these large organizations to do that for the benefit of the next generation. And I think that call really needs to be taken more seriously by the leadership of law firms. And I mean, whatever short-term advantage they gain from being in favor with the current administration, it's not going to last long, and it's going to come at a huge cost to the next generation and to our children and to the long-term integrity of our society.
And it's easy to be scared. We have Congressman Vindman coming on later, and he got this letter from the acting D.C. attorney, U.S. attorney, threatening him. With the give us this information by day, date, month. It wasn't even filled out right. I mean, we have to fight. I mean, again, as a person, it is, and I get it. That day I got the notice that I was being sued for $150 million. After I got done laughing at how ridiculous it was in my rental house, my used car, it was also, it's meant to scare you. And it feels like this is time, and you were a perfect example that you stood with your ethics. You paid a price. You will pay a price. There is no question that those of us who stand in the wind are going to pay a price, but this is what we have to do, isn't it? This is the only way we're going to survive this period, is if people who are placed in these positions have the spine and the strength of courage and moral courage to stand up to it, don't they?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think that the current administration's appetite for power is insatiable, and there's no amount that we can give that is going to stop this trend of just steamrolling the rule of law system, democracy. The only way to get back to equilibrium is for people to really start pushing back and not to capitulate to these demands that are being made.
Well, there you go. Exactly what my viewers need to hear. And they're like, thank you so much, Liz. Thanks for giving time for us. I mean, I know you've been really busy. I really appreciate you taking the time, especially on a Sunday. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Fred. I really appreciate the conversation.
We'll see you soon. Fascinating, right? I mean, the inner workings. I'd love to get Liz back again to be our legal analyst, because there's just so much going on in this world, and I'm not a lawyer, but it does go. And I want to reiterate what we said near the end of the interview together is, it really is important that this is a time of courage. It sucks. I know none of us wanted this time. Everybody keeps quoting Tolkien, right? Where, Frodo are talking to Gandalf, it is what it is. This is the time. And it's a weird feeling. I mean, mean, for someone like me, who's just a regular dude, I was a veterans advocate. I had a small firm in DC, got thrown in the middle of things with the Lincoln Project. And then that, of course, opened up a whole can of worms of opposition files and direct mail being sent that you guys probably even know half the stuff that happened. But when the scandals broke out around Lincoln Project, someone, Jared Kushner, paid to have mailers sent to all of our zip codes. So I was having neighbors coming to me with mailers about my organization saying we were crooks or pedophiles, just horrible shit, all sent anonymously to our zip codes. That's a weird feeling. You know, your own kids are getting mailers about you and your organization. Hit pieces written in the news about you, digging up your past financial challenges, like when you lost your business and got divorced. You know, it's just, that's the price a lot of us are going to pay. But you have to make a decision if this is the moment or not. And I think it's troubling when you see, you know, stuff like when you see Paul Weiss just giving in, so many just giving in. And we can't do that. You know, I hate to say it. So we go to the streets peacefully. We don't give an excuse, but we keep making our voices heard. We keep getting in there and we keep fighting. And I think that's the thing that matters the most is we get in the fight, because otherwise there just isn't a chance. You know, it's going to take time of bravery. If you've ever wondered in history, how many times have you wondered in history, if the moment comes where you have to stand up, would you do it? We're there. I mean, I don't know how many more ways we can get an example of, like, we are there. So, hey, I want to welcome before I go on with the show and bring in Congressman Vindman is waiting. I just so appreciate we got a pretty good crowd building on Substack right now. Hi guys on Substack. I see so many of you. I've been dropping in the chat while I can. It's so good to see a growing group of you here on Substack. I hope you'll join us every Sunday. What On Democracy Sunday is an alternative to the Sunday shows you're seeing on the networks that have sort of dropped the ball, in my humble opinion. But we're going to talk politics. We're also going to talk about music. We're going to talk about acting. We're going to talk about history. You'll see a lot more of our panels in the middle. We usually have a panel of 2 or 3 people. We talk about things other than just politics, because if we all don't take a moment from that, we will. But back to politics, I want to bring in a really special guest I'm thrilled to have on. I've been trying to get him on for a few weeks. You know, Eugene Vindman is a retired U.S. Army officer, and he's the representative for Virginia's 7th Congressional District. If you know, 7th District, it's the one just south of D.C. that stretches almost all the way to Richmond. It's a massive district geographically. Now, if you know Eugene's history, he served as an infantry officer and a judge advocate general in the Army for a 25-year career. He and his brother, Alex, who you have seen on the show before, and his sister-in-law, Rachel, as you know, I know the Vindmans, came in the crosshairs of Donald Trump during his first term, when, of course, they were involved in the scandal around Ukraine that led to Donald Trump's first impeachment. Well, needless to say, now he's a congressman, he's still in Donald Trump's crosshairs. So I want to welcome my friend Eugene Vindman to the show. Representative Vindman, it's so good to see you. For those who know the show, he's usually Eugene Vindman to me. We've known each other for a long time, but now he's a congressman. Welcome to the show, Congressman.
Fred, great to be on with you.
I appreciate it, man. I just had former pardon attorney Liz Oyer, who just left DOJ after she was asked to give Mel Gibson his gun rights back. You know, we talked quite a bit about weaponization of DOJ, the dangers to the Department of Justice. You, of course, are a former lawyer, but you're experiencing it now. You got this ridiculous letter a couple of weeks ago from interim U.S. Attorney Ed Martin demanding information by, I believe the date was month, date 2025.
Very professional, Fred. Very
professional. I mean, beyond. I mean, yeah, we got the letter right here. This is the actual letter, folks, and it was sent by mail. And I love this. Says, "Dear Eugene," to a sitting representative of Congress. I mean, this, as a former government attorney yourself, you were a judge advocate general in the Army. Let's talk the lawyer part of it. This must be infuriating. I mean, this is really outrageous to reach out to a congressman in this way, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess when I first got this letter, I thought that some wacko got a hold of the letterhead, because it was written unprofessionally and had all the indications of like a hack. And then we started getting phone calls to the office. So I mean, obviously, I had made somebody very unhappy. I stand in the way of this agenda, and this is a really blatant attempt to weaponize the DOJ to intimidate and silence me, and it's just not going to work.
Yeah, and on top of the just sheer that maliciousness of it, it's also a lot of incompetence. Like you said, I saw the letter your attorney sent back. I think we share a couple of attorneys, saying this isn't how it works. You don't just call our office. I mean, it's disturbing to see also this level of incompetence coming from a U.S. attorney, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I call this the Dear Eugene letter, but incompetent, and it shows the fact that this administration does not hire people based on competence, experience, judgment. There's only one qualification, and it's blind obedience and loyalty. So if you're the bigger the boot lick, the better chance you have of getting into this administration, and that's what we have. Unfortunately, with the politicization and weaponization of DOJ in this letter and other letters to elected officials.
Yeah, and the behavior too. Pam Bondi was on. You of course went through the first Trump administration. You witnessed January 6th, but here's the U.S. the Attorney General of the United States on TV threatening people who vandalize Teslas with terrorism charges. I mean, it's really an outrageous diversion of what the DOJ is supposed to be doing, isn't it?
It is, and not only is it incompetent, unacceptable, but this is the type of behavior you would expect in a third world regime, like in Hungary, in Russia, the weaponization of law enforcement to intimidate and silence critics. And I've been through this already once, Fred.
Right.
It didn't work when the president was doing this to me when I was a uniformed service member. It's certainly not going to work when a hack tries to do it to me.
While you sit in Congress, and the thing is, you and I talked. You've been in Congress 10 weeks. It's certainly not I don't believe it was the plan you had when you went up there. But the business of the people still continues, and there's a lot of noise out there. This continues. The folks you represent, you have such a unique district. Virginia 7, of course, is just south of D.C. You've got a swath of Central Virginia, one of the highest proportions of military members and highest proportions of veterans, federal employees. I mean, people were very deeply affected by this administration. One of the things we saw right away, I think we talked about, was this return to work order. And I think you had folks come to you right away saying, wait a minute, this is going to really affect military spouses, right? I mean, so we've really knocked down the military spouse. I bet you got a lot of feedback. You acted on that, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. Look, I mean, I look for common sense, bipartisan solutions wherever I can find them. And this one was pretty straightforward and simple. We got a call from a constituent, active duty service member spouse. She worked 100 miles outside of the headquarters of the federal agency in D.C. So there were three options. One was her active duty service member spouse was going to have to quit his job. She would have to quit her job, or she would have to do a 200-mile round trip daily commute. And that's not a position that we want to put any of our patriotic families in. And so we quickly sprang to action. We drafted a narrow piece of legislation, and we've actually found 4 Republican co-sponsors, including the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. And a week after we introduced that piece of legislation on the House floor, the president backpedaled. And so it's a demonstration that this is an administration that fires, then is ready aim, right? So think of the policy, think about it, adjust. And in this case, it was a bad policy, and with pressure, they folded.
I think that's what I was getting with that specific that case too. Is we've seen that time and time again. It feels like with Doge and with the Project 2025 stuff, they're just pulling wires, right? They pull a wire, see what sparks, or see what people scream about, right? Goddamn, the lights are out, and if you guys act on it and act with alacrity, you can push back on it, can't you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know many Silicon Valley businesses that would be successful in this approach, but when you have a government, people rely on earned benefits like Social Security and Medicaid, Medicare, and security, national security, other things the government is responsible for. You can't just pull wires. You actually have to think about it. You have to be deliberate about it. Perfect example this week. Elon's at DOD today, and he's
Yeah.
apparently looking under the hood. And I think and most of my colleagues were very much in favor of government efficiency, but here they're tinkering with our national defense and
Right.
with combatant commands and potentially war plans. Completely incompetent, inexperienced people. It does no good to have that kind of review by somebody that's not an expert. And it puts this company or this country in jeopardy. And that's why you had the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Republican, and chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Republican, push back on that.
Yeah, and they did forcefully. But at the same time, we're seeing so many attacks, and you alluded to it. The federal workforce is getting beat to hell. I've got friends in your district, as a matter of fact, who work for VA. They're being pummeled with requirements. The 24-hour, 60 people reviews. They opened that VA clinic in Fredericksburg in your district. I think you were there, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
It's not done yet. I mean, because the hiring freeze, they don't have enough people to even really run the thing. The pharmacy's not open, and at the same time, 83,000 threatened from VA, 60,000 more DOD. I mean, it's not just affecting your job, but thousands of decent Americans. I mean, I think people, this idea that these are bad people, you know better than that, Eugene. You served in the Army. Now you're a representative. I mean, these are decent people, many of them veterans, right? Just trying to serve their goddamn country, aren't they?
Yeah. So look, 1/3 of federal employees are veterans. And so these policies attacking federal employees are profoundly anti-veteran. And then you on top of that, what they're doing at this VA medical center you mentioned, and you're well informed there, Fred. This is the largest VA medical center in the country, $350 million investment, 1/3 staffed. So you can't get the services you need there because of the hiring freeze. And so it's enormously frustrating. One of my constituents, a veteran, was expecting to get services there. He can't. He's got to go back down to Richmond. And so you have this $350 million facility that is not at full capacity, a long ways off. I mean, that's the furthest thing from government efficiency.
Yeah, and they lied about that. I mean, they put out some statements on social media saying, "Oh, look, we've built these 4 clinics, but they're not functioning." And it seems to be they're talking out both sides of their mouths constantly. I mean, are you guys hitting them for trying to, because you're like the unique thing about your district, and I like talking to you, is your district has so many of the pieces of this puzzle concentrated in that district. You're also on the agricultural committee, for God's sake, because you've also got the farmers, and of course I'm sure your farmers are being affected now. I believe they're already starting to offer them money because of his latest tariff wars. I mean, Virginia 7 gets a lot of the damage. So you're able to call the truth in these guys, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%. So we have 72,000 veterans that live in this district. We have 55,000 federal government employees. We have 3,000 square miles, over 3,000 small farms. And so we have a smattering of just about everything in this district, in suburbs and in rural exurban areas. And one of the first things I did after being in office is I went to Culpeper. I met with a roundtable of farmers, and this was just weeks after the president inauguration, and they were very worried about. They'd already had programs frozen. So a poultry house that was partially under construction, USDA, in partnership with a farmer, a contract, right?
Yeah.
Was not paying on the contract against an obligation that it had to this farmer because of the freeze that this administration had put in haphazardly without any due consideration. That was one example. I spoke to a county supervisor there that had put on support to law enforcement. They were going to hire more law enforcement. They put that on hold because that funding is in jeopardy. And we frankly saw that cut in this budget, that cut almost $500 million to law enforcement around the country. And so they're profoundly anti-veteran. They, in fact, are the ones that are defunding the police. The hypocrisy is just there are no limits to the hypocrisy here, Fred.
Yeah, but And I've told you before. I think for those who don't know, poor Eugene has to get my text messages because I have his number. And the Democrats are getting beat up too. The party's numbers are down like 27% support. You saw Schumer getting his butt kicked. I mean, I'm sure you're getting the same kind of blowback. I mean, I guess people are demanding you guys fight more. What is your feeling? I mean, the House caucus did hold together for the CR. You guys did a really good job there. You held together and you didn't bend to the will. A few of your colleagues did. Senator Al Green. Is that fair? How do you answer that criticism that you guys need to do more? Because I'm one of them.
Look, Fred, I think it's really unique. If you ask folks what they think of Congress or Democrats, they'll say 27% approval rating. If you ask people what they think about their representative, that number actually changes. Yeah. And so I am not seeing a ton of blowback. I'm seeing frustrated people. We had a teletown hall, 7,000 folks on that call. In-person town hall, 650 people showed up on a random Tuesday. Were they pissed? Yeah, and they have plenty of reason to be pissed. Yeah, they're looking for representation, folks that will listen to them, that will fight for them, and they know that's what they have in me. And so, I got 10 weeks on the job here as a politician. I got a lot to learn about politics, but I spent 25 years in the Army. And so I know a thing or two about fighting. And so I'm fighting for my constituents. They see that and they appreciate that.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I think a lot of people we talk to here at the show and then in our other work is they just want to be heard, right? That the frustration is that they're not being heard. Obviously, the Republicans are getting a lot more of this because they're ignoring them, but they want you to listen to them and to fight for you. So it is, it's great to have these town halls and all. I mean, what's next in this fight for you guys? I mean, obviously you're in the minority. We all get that, but there are fights. You showed you can push back with the bill against spouse employment. Are you going to be able to fight back against the VA cuts and the DOD cuts? I mean, what do you see as your ability to slow that down?
Yeah, so I think I like to look at these things sort of strategically, and policies that negatively impact hardworking, patriotic military families. That's something I think Democrats and Republicans can agree on. I think supports of veterans, another area we can agree on. And I'm very proud of the fact that I'm on both the House Armed Services Committee and the Ag Committee. Those traditionally have both been the most bipartisan committees. I think there's been a little bit of erosion there, politics creeping too much into the policies in both those committees. But I consider myself very common sense, problem solver, and I'm going to look for opportunities to work with my Republican colleagues where I can, and frankly, fight them where I must as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to fight about right now too. So, Eugene, appreciate your time. I know you're a busy guy. Thanks for squeezing us in. Where can people find out what you guys are doing? Follow your work.
Yeah, so VindmanForCongress.com is our campaign website. We also have an official side website, so you can see what we're doing every day, fighting for the constituents in this district. And Fred, my pleasure. Let's do this again. More often.
Yeah, we'll give you a shot when we need to come. I'll come beat you up on here. People read some of the text messages we harass each other with. But I appreciate you, Eugene. Thanks for everything you do, and keep up the fight. I know we appreciate it. I know your constituents. As you know, I've got family in your district, so thanks for everything. And we will talk to you again soon, sir.
Thanks.
Yeah, always nice to talk to a friend who's now a congressman. I've been very fortunate. It's funny how, and it's not because I'm in politics. I've just been very fortunate to see so many great Americans who I've been able to know over the years make it. My friend Seth Moulton, if you know Seth Moulton, representative in Massachusetts, we served in Iraq together when he on staff in 2005, and now of course it's funny to catch the news and see somebody you've known since you were in your 30s to be succeeding. As we close out the show, I really appreciate so many. I think it's spring break, so a lot of you are out doing things. We appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for all the folks on Substack that have joined us. I want to highlight the story I did do on Substack this week, and I want to make sure we understand what we're dealing with. A lot of folks are talking about the attacks on the dismantling of USAID, the dismantling of other organizations. But one thing I don't feel like we've seen enough in the media, I've seen a couple of stories about, has been the plan they've had all along to traumatize and terrorize those who do serve in the federal government and undermine their ability to do the work. And one of those specifically I've heard a lot about as a veteran, you guys know I'm a veteran, is from the VA. But also I've had the opportunity to talk to FBI special agents, IRS employees, USAID employees who've reached out to me who I'm friends with. And I want to talk a little bit, but this is what, if you saw, this came out during the campaign. ProPublica got this video. I want you to understand the person you're about to see in this video is Russell Vought, who's now the head of OMB. And this is what he said at a conference last year.
We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. We want, when they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want their funding to be shut down so that the EPA can't do all of the rules against our energy industry because they have no bandwidth financially to do so.
Okay, so understand what he said there and what is happening. Exactly that. And it seems so innocuous. And what I talked about in this post I did, I hope you'll look on Substack. It's my last post is we talk about the fact that the way they're doing this sounds so innocuous. It is the 5 points email. It is the review all your personnel. And I have some quotes in there, and I won't go deep into it here as we're wrapping up the show, but I encourage you to check out the Substack. It's fpwellman.substack.com. We can put it on screen. There's a lot of really great content there, and I'm doing original reporting there now. And I talked to both a VA a supervisor and an FBI special agent, and the pressure they're under each day to do their jobs. And one thing you'll notice when you read the quotes, and they're long, from my friends, is it has nothing to do with doing their jobs. My friend who works at the Veterans Health Administration doesn't talk a lot about, she never talked about actually taking care of veterans. She's talking about trying to find cubicle space for mental health providers because there never was enough offices for them. And now there's a return to work order that Doug Collins is touting like it's a good deal. It talks about so little guidance in the FBI that many of the FBI agents are spending their time taking down like books that may give them away as being LGBT or not, or be considered DEI for fear of their jobs. There's terror among many of them because thousands of FBI agents were involved in the investigations of January 6th, and now they're being targeted by their own leadership. You know, this is the stuff going on, and you need to hear their own voices, and we need to raise our voices. And I'll leave you with that. A lot of folks in both, Substack and here are saying, hey, what can we do? We can make our voices heard. We're seeing clearly that public pressure works. Jackie Robinson is going back up on the website of DOD because of it. The things I wrote about, for example, Major General Rogers having his site marked DEI and taken down. They are succumbing to our public pressure. So our pressure does work against these fools. But even more so, come on out. Come on out. There are protests going on across the country. There's demonstrations going on. I know there's one March 29th in St. Louis, the Gateway Arch, organized by unions and others. We're going to have a lot more folks out there at many more. I'm part of a group planning one for veterans come June. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on, and we need to participate. Our voices do matter. Don't forget that for 1 second. Write, call, bring friends, raise hell. But this is the kind of disgusting evil we're up against. Russell Vought, Elon Musk and his weird balancing forks at Mar-a-Lago. That's what we're up against. And we can beat them peacefully, okay? But we can beat them if we participate, if we get together and we march and we make our voices heard and understand our democracy remains our democracy. We're going to fight back against these assholes because that's what they are. They're assholes. So with that, thanks for joining the show. As always, subscribe on YouTube. We'd love to get more subscribers there. Really subscribe on the Substack. Oh my God, it's growing. We picked up 1,000 new subscribers in the last 2 days. Incredible growth there. Thank you so much. It is totally free as always. If you want to be a paid subscriber, it does pay for people like JJ, me, and Katie to hang out with you. And we appreciate that. So if you want to upgrade to paid subscriber, that's very much appreciated. And it is put to good work. I promise you that's how we pay for all this stuff. In the meantime, check us out on social media. I'm on Blue Sky as fpwellman.everything. We're on Democracy Channel on Blue Sky. JJ's on there. Everybody's on there as well. So we're still on X because that's where some crazy shit happens. Man, thank you, Terry. That's very nice to hear. I appreciate you guys. Thanks, Vern. Everybody for showing all our regulars, even knowing it's just another day of craziness here. I know it's spring break, so I appreciate you guys being here. I know my kids are on spring break right now. Thank you so very much, everyone, for being a part of our growing community, being part of the On Democracy Sunday family. We will see you again, same bat channel, same bat time, right next week for On Democracy Sunday. I'm Fred Wellman. We'll see you again then.